It's not advancing. Richard told me it was going to work. Can you advance it, Alfred? Okay. I thought I had another PowerPoint slide. Okay, anyway, so Alfred, I'm going to have to rely upon you because this clicker is not working. Now I'm going to get kind of off throne a little bit. Okay, God's help with life struggles. And so I'm dealing with single adults and the struggles that are associated with us as being single adults. I'm sorry? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, all right, thank you. All right. Okay, I'm not used to not having control. If anybody who knows me, I love to be in control. Anyway, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, so the barrier. So I appreciate this. The Bible tells us, and let's turn to Genesis chapter number 2. Genesis chapter number 2, and let us look at what the text says here. Genesis chapter number 2. So by barrier is something you can hurdle over. So it's not something that's impossible. It's just a barrier that is put before you that you're going to have to put some effort into overcoming. In Genesis chapter number 2, verse 18, and the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, and every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him. The barrier. Life as a single Christian, and some of the things that are involved in that struggle. Most people would like to be married. They tell us that most people will get married. Most people want to find someone that they are what? What did you say?
Living with.
Okay, living. What do you mean by living with?
Staying together.
Okay.
Man and wife without being actual.
Okay. What'd you say over here? Compatible. Is that what people look for when they get married? Someone who they're compatible with? The barriers to this, life struggles. Because if you reach a certain point in your life, sometimes one of the barriers that we can have, and this is part of our life struggles, is that I'm at a certain age, and so therefore my standards have been lowered. And so therefore, I'm going to what? I'm going to marry who? If they're breathing. That's Lyle. I didn't say that. That's what Lyle said. If we lower our standards, so for us in the church, we're going to marry a non-Christian. Okay? Or we could marry someone that's in the church, but they're not faithful. They're not faithful. So life as a single adult, some of the struggles that we would have is that there are those barriers. Again, barriers are something that we can overcome. Genesis chapter number 2 tells us that God designed man to be a social being and therefore to want to be with someone, as our brother said here, that I can live with, someone that I can be compatible with, someone to have things in common with, someone that's going to help me grow socially, someone that's going to help me grow spiritually. But for single adults, there could be barriers because the majority of the church is married. So most of the time, and no matter what congregation you go to, the majority of the congregation, you got married couples. You have preachers who do sermons. They do a series on the family. And they're always talking about how you can be a better husband. And guys, there's nothing wrong with this. How to be a better wife, how to cater to your children, how to help them. Nothing wrong with those things. When was the last time you heard a sermon in your congregation where the preacher said, okay, I'm dedicating this sermon to the singles. I'm just going to talk to those single adults, whether they are young adults or whether they are elderly. I'm just going to talk to singles. I have to admit, my profession as preachers, I don't think that we have done a very good job in talking to singles in the congregation. Now, we do need to talk about the family. Absolutely. We certainly should, and we must. But that's some of the barriers that we have to overcome. Again, that's what a barrier is. I'm going to overcome this. So we see here in Genesis chapter number 2 that Adam was alone, and he wanted to find someone that was just like him. The barriers. Alfred, can you advance the slide, please? What do I mean by this? Single in the church, the blame? Anybody have any idea what I mean by this? The blame. And why can't you find somebody? Because you're too what? There you go. Needless to say, that's never been said of me, by the way. Okay. I mean, you're just too, who are you looking for? What type of person are you trying to find? You know, the reason why you are single is because of you. Is that true? Is that true? I'm asking, is that true? Remember, we're talking about struggles, life as a single adult struggles. Is that, let me ask you, could that be true? Go ahead and explain, Lau. Okay. For those that didn't hear, Lyle's made a good point. If you are a Christian single and you want someone that is going to help you make heaven your eternal home, but you can't find them in your home congregation, then what do? You go elsewhere and you can't find them there. What do? Well, you keep looking and you can't find them. What do? Give up. Okay. Okay. See, these are the struggles that Christian singles have. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that because a person is single, that it is exclusively their fault. There could have been times that, it wasn't your fault. I mean, you have prayed, you have searched, and it just didn't happen. Or it could have been your fault. You could have made some wrong decisions, right? We could have made some decisions that were not the best decisions that we should have made, and we did make those decisions. Being a single Christian, again, the struggles, you can see that sometimes Christians find themselves in a situation where it's self-blame because, when I was in my 20s, this is what I did, and if I had made better decisions, then I would maybe have a spouse, or if I was in my 30s. So we can get into that situation where we blame ourselves, and that is a very real possibility. I just want to help people with that, understanding that sometimes we can't make decisions that we can't not undo. But it doesn't mean that we have to give up, that we need to stop. But we need to look at it honestly and look at it. And maybe there were some things, maybe there were some decisions that I didn't make, that I could have made, that I should have made. Or as Lyle said, maybe. Now, let's talk about this. Is it wrong to have high standards? Should we have high standards for our Christian singles? What should that standard be? What should it be? Okay, so we're going to encourage Christian singles to marry who? Just other Christians, or other faithful Christians? Okay, so there's nothing wrong with having a higher standard for that. But sometimes we just got to look at the fact that, I'm using blame loosely here, but we just have to just be a little bit honest and be a little bit honest with this. And there could have been times in our past that we did maybe make some decisions where, wow, we really let some good people go because of the way we acted or what we have done. Hey, Alfred, can you please advance? Okay, the burden. Why would there be a burden being single in the church? And not to mention society. not to mention society. So I want to spend some time here because there's two aspects of this, in society and in the church. What's the burden being a single in 2022? And those of you who are married, you're like, Brother Barry, I have no idea. But what's the burden in 2022 in society and in the church? Yeah. 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 I mean, again, I said this before, there's nothing wrong with it, but our churches in general are family centric. I mean, that's just the reality. We have things that are set up that we have it for married couples. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, look at our modern society. What is our modern society telling single people? Dealing with life struggles, a burden. What is modern society telling our single people? Say that again. Oh, you don't have to be. Yeah, you don't have to be married. What else are they telling them? Okay. Yes. What else? You got it made. Okay. What about living together?
You don't have to be married to live together.
Right. Right. Now, do any of these things play a part in Christian singles, whether we want to admit it or not? Do any of these things affect Christian singles, if we're honest? Yes. By burden, I'm looking at this as like something that we're going to have to endure, something that we're going to have to bear up. Our modern world, our modern society, whether it's movies or television programs, you see how people are living their lives, and you see how they are operating. Now, what happens when we see that as Christian singles? We know we shouldn't do that, right? We know we shouldn't behave that way. But people that are single out here, that are dating, quote unquote dating, they are doing things, they are operating in ways that involve more than just dating. So the pressure of Christian singles today, again, dealing with life struggles as a single adult, our modern society is going to tell us it's okay to engage in premarital sex, right? Yeah, isn't that what they're going to tell us? Isn't that what's out here? I mean, that is just the norm now. Okay, you go to your job, it's on your job. You go to the gym, it's there. So that is the part of the life that Christian singles burden that we have to bear, is not to cave in, not to give in to that societal pressure of wanting to operate and act just like those that are in the world. There are some Christians that might be thinking about living together before they get married. The burden that is born by being a Christian single and the struggles that we have. What about in the church? What about in the church? Is there any pressure on Christian singles in the church? And whether it's intentional or unintentional, is there any pressure on single Christians in the church? Do we even think of it that way?
I would say you wouldn't have anyone to help you out with your walk with Christ. I mean, besides how closer, and help you out with your walk with Christ. That doesn't apply to the world too, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me ask it. Let me ask it. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let me ask it this way. Married people don't mean anything by this, right? But they're going to say something like, when are you going to get what? When are you going to get married? What kind of question is that? It is personal, but what kind of question is that? You're just probing questions, then there's intrusive questions. What kind of question is that? I guess it could be that too. But what is the person asking the question? What are they really saying? Yeah. Why aren't you? Okay. Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Well, see, this is why I wanted to camp out a little bit more here. I agree with what Ashley said, and I guess I did not attach any sinister designs on the person asking the question. But again, we're just talking about life struggles as a single. And so sometimes you get questions like this. And so for the single is how they're receiving it, how they're understanding it. And if they know that you love them, yes, they will receive it well, but it still becomes a burden for them. Because now it looks like, well, I really got to what? I really got to find somebody. There you go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So with what Rachel said, coupled with what Ashley said, is there something wrong with somebody who's single? Let's just be honest. Could there be something wrong with somebody who's single? We don't want to be honest here. Yeah. Okay. And of course. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And thank you. And remember, I'm just taking this from the singles viewpoint, married couples. You guys have been long married. Y'all forgot what it's like to be single, right? But I'm talking about these single people now getting these questions. Yes, ma'am. Mhm. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And choices, I'm talking about 2022. It's always been challenging, to find somebody. And I certainly believe that we can. But choices are a little bit more challenging now within the body of Christ. So just keep that in mind too. Um, just a little bit more challenging. That's all I'm gonna say. 'Cause some congregations have gone left, and so it's a little bit difficult to find someone that's faithful, but not impossible. I'm not suggesting that. Just a little bit more challenging. But you take it from a Christian single viewpoint. Then what about those Christian singles who were married and now widowed? They're Christian singles, right? Singles adult. So what burden could they be bearing? Singles that were married, whether they are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Yes.
To find a compatible person to be with that would be agreeable to be with you.
Mhm.
Sometimes you find a person you think would be great, but they turn out to be against getting remarried. marrying someone, and, that is,
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Married, now they're not married, now they're widowed. Do they have a burden? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Okay, say that again, please. You said say that again, please. Mm. Right, right, right. And see, this is what I'm talking about with the burden that is single adults in the church. If you desire to be married again, if you want to be married again after having been widowed, just some burdens that we may have to bear and being able to find someone. Like we said though earlier, if there's no one at my particular congregation where I'm at, may need to look to perhaps maybe visit out if I can. But again, sometimes just what's going on in our brotherhood, it's just a little bit more challenging because some congregations are left. So it's just a little bit more challenging. But see, that's something that we were talking about earlier about the burden, the challenge that we have as singles. Then what about those singles who are not widowed, who've never been married, but they were married, but now they are divorced? Are we as welcoming to those singles that have been scripturally divorced? Scripturally. Let me say scripturally divorced. What's the burden that they have, scripturally divorced?
they'd be afraid of remarrying somebody that is not acceptable to them, but seem to be. And later on, they find out they're not.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I know in my little polling that I've done with single adults that have been divorced, they say, Brother Barry, overwhelmingly, I find myself having to prove that my divorce was scriptural. Now, they say I have no problem doing that, but, it's like I have to keep demonstrating that I was divorced for scriptural reasons. Could that be a burden to you? If you have to keep constantly having to keep doing that? It'd be a little bit struggle. So different groups of singles have these different burdens. Brother, can we move the slide, please? Now, by business, I just simply mean work. So now let's turn to 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. 1 Corinthians chapter number 7, the business of single. Okay, what is the business of singles? What is the work of singles? The same work that is given to every Christian. Matthew 6:33 says what? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things shall be added unto you. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. Now to the, verse number 8. 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. But I say to the unmarried, to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better for them to marry than to burn. Now let's fast forward a little bit here to verse number 17. Well, actually, I don't want to read 17. 25. Now, concerning virgins, I have no commandment from the Lord, yet I give judgment as one whom the Lord in his mercy has made trustworthy. I suppose, therefore, that this is good because of the present distress, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loose. Are you loose from a wife? Do not seek a wife. But even if you do marry, you have not sinned, and if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such will have trouble in the flesh, but I will spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short, so that from now on even those who have wives should be as though they had none, those who weep as though they had not wept, those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, those who buy as though they did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it, for the form of this world is passing away. Verse number 32. But I want you to be without care, for he who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he who marries cares about things of the world, how he may please his wife. There's a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, that she may be both holy in body and spirit. But she who is married cares about things of the world, how she pleases her Lord. And this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, that you may serve the Lord without distraction. So for the Christian single, the evidence is, Paul is saying, that this should give us time and opportunity to be very active in the work of the Lord. Would anyone disagree with that? So what is the work of a Christian? What's the work of the church? Okay, benevolence, edification, evangelism, absolutely. The work of a Christian single. So we should be able to get out and volunteer ourselves to do things in the church, to help out as much as we possibly can. Agree? We should be. That's to be our business. We have this wonderful opportunity to do these things for the Lord. So we should be able to, as a single adult, just say, hey, I want to sign up, I want to volunteer, I want to do this. If we can, right? If we are physically able, if we are able to do those things. So I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So in looking at that, Brother Alfred, the next slide. There is an abundant blessing if we do that. You know, as long as I'm single, not that maybe I'm saying I want to be single for the rest of my life, but you know what? As long as I'm single right now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be proactive rather than reactive. I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to be doing what I can for the cause of Christ. I'm going to try my best to live my life in such a way that people will be that God will be magnified and glorified. So as a single adult, as a single Christian, just want to use my time and my talents wisely so that I can be maximum use of the Lord. Because as Paul said, you know, you don't have a spouse, you don't have children at this time. Now, I know there could be some single adults that do have children, but you're saying that I want to use my time and my talent to be blessed by God, to be able to go forth and work in the kingdom. Matthew 6:33. I want to work in the kingdom. I don't have anything, I don't have a spouse. Not to say that a spouse is a hindrance, right? Right? Okay. But while I am single, I do have what? Availability, right? I should, right? I should. Say that again. What'd you say?
No, I wasn't saying.
Oh. Yeah. So I'm in general, I should have this availability and I should have this time to be able to use that for the Lord. And what a blessing that is. You know, 1 Corinthians 15:58, still in the Bible, right? Be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. I mean, what a great text. And so, yes, use my time, use my talent, use my energy to work for the cause of Christ. And if I'm still looking to get married, if there's someone out there like that that's doing the same thing that I am, that's of the opposite gender, we come together, we just work all the more together for the Lord. So don't just sit back and say, well, because I'm single, I can't do anything, because there's plenty of work that we can do as Christian singles in the Lord. And Alfred, I think I have one more. All right, so I think I'm making time, Richard. I have 15 minutes left. So we want to just leave this for discussion. We want to open it up for discussion and questions and comments at this time on life as a single adult. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think we should have covered? We'll be happy to cover that right now. Any comments, any questions? Okay, yeah.
I said Sister Janet asked a question. I don't think it was addressed.
Okay, let's go back to Sister Janet. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a widow.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a widow and going on 7 years,
Yes, ma'am.
and we, combined with Northridge and all, but it seems like it's more elderly brothers and sisters here. We don't have a lot of younger adults here. There's Christian young adults, but way too young for, widows and all that. But maybe it's just me, I don't know. So I don't know what to do.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate your honesty. Appreciate it. Very good. So again, that's part of the burdens that certain Christian singles face. I almost tripped over the board. That certain Christians face, because I'm at a congregation, I'm at a situation where I'm not in this category where the younger adults are, but I'm not in this category where the senior saints are. And so I'm having a difficulty in my age bracket, if I understand your question, I'm having a difficulty in my age bracket at my own congregation here, trying to find someone who I could be compatible with. That is pretty much what you were saying. Yeah, again, that's a part of the burden of being a Christian single. The only thing that I can offer, if possible, is that if there is not anyone in my local congregation, and I've looked and I've searched, then if there's another faithful congregation that I might be able to visit, then maybe perhaps. Or was that Temptation song, Ain't Too Proud to Beg? That was also TLC too. Maybe you just have to ask somebody, do you know anybody who you can introduce me to? Do you, if you have a faithful, Christian friend that you trust, and say, hey, I mean, it's probably not what most people feel comfortable with doing, but that's just part of the burden that we bear as Christian singles, especially when we're at a situation where the congregation where we're at is not providing an opportunity for someone for me to date at that particular work. Of course, keep praying. I'm always going to say that. Keep praying, and keep praying. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. Any more comments, questions? Anyone else have any other suggestions on our sister's question? Yeah.
I was in both situations, married, unequally yoked, divorced, and now he's dead. Then I was with a guy. He was really into me, and I like the fact that he was into me and my son, and he's dead. And then I dated someone else. He was into me, family, so much family, and he was faithful coming to church with me. And then he started talking marriage and everything, but then I'm looking at, I know what I have, so what you bringing to the table? And basically, he wanted to marry me, and he probably would have joined the church too. But I knew if I was to marry him, that was because I had benefits. And I don't want to bring nobody into my situation who don't have their own. So needless to say, he went and married somebody else. So yet I am alone again because I pray. Maybe I don't volunteer a lot, and I'm not one to just go out and just seek and find, because I would like to be approached. But I would like to be approached by somebody, and again I say I pray, with somebody who's going to come and have something to, I know what I have, so what you have besides your car and your bag of clothes to think you're going to put them in my closet? What do you do in a case like that?
Okay. Well, I want to address also what you said about loneliness, because loneliness at times for Christian singles can be something that is actual. It could be. So we don't want to underscore that.
Rather, that is one of the burdens of being with us.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Loneliness is real. Loneliness is a real thing. And sometimes you can even be in an assembling like this and still feel lonely and still feel isolated. And so we just got to keep that in mind too. That's a real thing that needs to be, it just needs to be underscored. Now to Sister Rita's point, you were looking at just making a wise decision. You want to make a wise decision. Marriage is, as we all know, marriage is not something that we can take lightly or go into lightly. And you don't want to get married because you are lonely and you just want to be with someone because you're lonely. That's the wrong reason to get married. And you certainly don't want to get married because you guys are trying to combine financial assets, or someone else is looking at your financial portfolio and saying, hey, this is pretty nice. So those are absolutely wrong reasons to look at getting married. You should marry someone because they're going to help you go to heaven. They're going to help you make heaven your eternal home. So that we cannot ever lower the bar from that. This person is going to help me make heaven my eternal home. Go ahead. Yeah.
Always in the back of my mind and protecting those assets.
Yeah.
So it becomes a double burden for male or female, any single.
Absolutely. So we have to be extremely wise. Again, prayer. And we have to be extremely wise in whom we elect to date and not align ourselves with someone who is trying to financially profit or benefit from me. Again, it has to be spiritually based. It has to be because we're going to make heaven together. I'm going to help you. You're going to help me. We'll raise our family to be brought up in the Lord. That is what our focus is. So we have to be wise. Again, I guess too, look at the pool with whom you're dating from too. So if you're dating from a pool that has people that are out to get something from you, then yeah, you don't need to be in that pool. If you can find people that you know that can love you for yourself, and again, wants to help model Christ and put Christ first, Matthew 6:33. We got, yeah.
Difficult at times because, we grow around our friends and those people could be in the world.
Yep.
So you try to be an influence on them, but at the same time, those are sometimes people who you're around.
Yeah.
And those things can become distractions when you see like the lifestyle that other people have, that they shack up or do whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just something to kind of be mindful of, is to not fall for that trap and remember that we are in Christ,
Right.
and we have to really protect what we have and hold it down.
Absolutely.
And not go that, because once you get sucking in, then it's hard to get out.
It is.
And then you're just stuck, you know. And then sometimes that can work out. That could take years, though.
Yeah.
If you get into that situation.
Yep.
So just something to
No,
keep
but
in mind.
want to build upon that, Brother Patrick, because 1 Corinthians 15:33, right? Evil companions, it's going to corrupt good morals. So, we all know that as guys, we could be around our guys, and if they're non-Christians, their thoughts is that, this is what you should be doing. This is what all men do. That macho kicks in, don't it, fellas? So we all play that macho game. So this is what a real man does. And so this is what a real man does. And so therefore, you're going to be shacking up or living with someone, certainly fornicating, because that's what real men do. That's what real men do. So we have to be very mindful of that burden, as Patrick said, of Christian and not caving into societal pressure. Yes, sir.
Brother Barry, would you comment on, you mentioned earlier about your spear. we live in an environment today that's very mobile. Where 30 years ago, people, didn't travel a lot, but now because we travel, because we're very mobile, and I'm going back to the point you made, if I'm single and I'm willing to do the work, so maybe it's mission trips, other activities that take me out of my local sphere to that larger sphere where there are other members of the church, I'm saying outside of Dayton, maybe even outside of the United States, that I might be able to come in contact with others of like precious faith and who are interested in me because of who I am as a child of God and vice versa.
Amen.
I don't know if you want to.
Yes. And I purposely did not mention social media. That also includes, there are two that I know of: Church of Christ, Lord's Church dating sites, churchofchristSingles.com, and then Christian Mingle. Okay. I purposely did not mention them because not everybody's comfortable with those, and quite frankly, there's been some horror stories with those. So to Richard's point, whether it be PTP, polishing the pulpit, or going to lectureships, and getting out of your sphere, and maybe going to other gospel meetings that congregations are having, and engaging and finding maybe an opportunity to meet someone. Now, I don't want to make it seem like you walking in there with a shirt saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a spouse," but I don't know. You might need to do that. That might work. I don't know. You do what you got to do. So you can at least let the local preacher know, "Hey, I'm looking. You got anybody for me to meet?" Most preachers, we would say, "Well, okay, let me think about it." And so that might be an opportunity for you to do as well. Traveling out of your sphere might be, if your situation is such where there just isn't anyone in my local work. And then some people have, speaking of social media, some people have found their spouse on Facebook. Now, I know that might sound scary, but some people have. So again, it's just maybe getting out of your spirit. And according to Richard Meltzer, we got 1 minute left.
I just wanted to say, I think it's a great lesson, but I also want to make sure that we remember to stay as supportive and encouraging as possible, because there's nothing wrong with our single adults. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't ever want them to feel like there's something wrong or I didn't meet the mark and I have to find somebody. That's how problems arise. I have plenty of friends, male and female, who are faithful in the church. I just had an idea. I should start a group text message. But anyway, I do. But I need them to know that as long as you're faithful and doing the Lord's work, you're okay. There's this, and it has to be hard living in a society where so much emphasis is put on, married life and couple. It's bad enough you see Hollywood, people run through marriages like water, but we don't want that for them. So just being as encouraging and supportive as possible to let them know that as long as you're faithful, I'm sorry, the baby trying to get the mic. There is no, the married, there's a different pedestal. If you married, then, you have a different mansion, robe, and a crown, and that's not true. Right.
Thank you, Rachel. And that's why I would say my preaching fraternity, and I'm pointing fingers at myself too. We need to, I think, because that was one of the things that I did too in preparation for this. I said, let me find some sermons that have been catered towards Christian singles. I was having a difficult time finding them from the Lord's church. I think we need to do a better job of, like Rachel's point, of encouraging Christian singles that you're not scum of the earth, okay? You're not some subservient waste because you're not married. And just because you're not married doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, okay? Or of that magnitude. So encouraging sermons would help in that. And then getting them to look at, hey, now that I'm single, here's what I can do. I can look to try to be as active as I possibly can, and I can try to work in this. Let me use my talents and my abilities. So I thank you for bringing it up, because I did want to mention that.
Now, the people from Western know I'm a crybaby, so I'll probably start crying. But I'm single, have been single, and probably will, I'll say 99.999 stay single because of my thought process. Honestly, I do not trust men. I don't want to, and just say for the married people in the church, and sometimes you'll see me talk to different, I don't want to put, like even with my sister, or I'll just say a third wheel. I don't want to put myself on you, or I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, me being single, coming into your whatever, I'm not coming into your relationship, but, talking to or paying attention to or whatever. So, and with my mindset, I'll just put it kindly like that, I think about things like that a lot. So I'm fine being single. I'm good at being single because I know that I can't put up with me sometimes, and I don't want to put that on somebody else. And I don't want anybody to pretend like they can put up with, whatever I have going on, because I go up and down all the time. And this really wasn't a question.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, because that leads me to, and I'm going to close here, Matthew chapter number 19. And I appreciate your honesty and knowing where you're at. This is what Jesus said. Jesus said, verse 11 and 12. But he said to them, all cannot accept this, save only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born thus from their mother's womb. That there are eunuchs who make eunuchs by men, and then there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He who is able to accept it, let him accept it. I'm not necessarily saying that that is your case, but I appreciate your expressing that and stating that. You know where, that's self-awareness, okay? So I appreciate your understanding that, and if that is your decision, then hey, we bid you Godspeed. I mean, that's great. So thank you. And it took courage to say that in this assembly. So thank you so much. Well, thank you all. I'm going to sit down now.
Thank you, Brother Barry, and everyone for their participation. And as Kevin said, and he is right, and I say kudos, Kevin. Thank you for saying this. We have not historically in the Lord's church addressed this particular topic. We've talked around it. We've said some general statements, and I'm guilty as well. And so I will look. I'm going to do my best to do a little bit better, not a little bit, do a better job making sure that I am preparing lessons, speaking to those, trying to make sure we talk to all the members of the Lord's church. So thank you, Brother Barry, and everyone for your input, and I hope that you studied these things. And the elders have asked, if you have questions that were not, and you want to have the speaker of that hour address them, you can just write it out, get it to the office, to Sister Dolly. She will get it to the speaker, and if you want that speaker to contact you directly, give him how he can reach you. If you want it you want it general, we'll put it in the bulletin.